right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Courtney Crossgrove. I am the Program and Metrics Manager with Focus Maine.
I'm Angela Hollowell. I'm an analyst at Camoin Associates.
So we're going to be talking about cultivating prosperity today. Cultivating prosperity is a strategic plan for growing Maine's food economy. So this report was released by Focus Maine. The research and development was supported by Camoin Associates, so that's why Angela's here today to talk a bit about the data. And it was funded by the Small Business Administration. So to start off, I'm going to talk a little bit about what Focus Maine is, and then we're going to dive into some background on the report, and we're going to talk a bit about the components of the report, including that data. All right, I have control here. Oop. There we go. So Focus Maine is a private sector-led nonprofit organization focused on economic development. Our mission is to propel the growth of Maine's most promising industries and transform Maine into a hub for top talent. So like I said, we're an economic development organization, but we only focus on two sectors. One of those, of course, is the food economy, which is why we're here today. The other is the bioscience economy. We also focus on workforce development more broadly. So our approach is essentially to strategize about programs and to find people to implement those programs. So what that looks like more specifically is developing strategy through consulting with experts and economists about these specific sectors, finding those gaps and opportunities, such as through the report Cultivating Prosperity. We then find partners that have the skills and the resources to be able to fill those gaps and opportunities through programming, and we work with them to develop programs. They then implement those programs, and we're, for the most part, pretty hands-off at that point. We do help provide support and assist them with those programs if they need it, and we also help with the outcomes and program evaluation. We focus on two main outcomes. There's various ones, but the two most important ones are jobs created, as well as revenue added. We started programming in about 2018, and since then we've added 577, well, the companies that participate in Focus Maine programs have added about 577 direct jobs and 261.7 million in revenue. So we're pretty proud of that and would like to see it accelerate. Maybe. Okay, so why do we focus on the food economy? Like I said, Focus Maine selected two sectors to focus on in terms of programming to build Maine's overall economy. So some research was done early on in the days of Focus Maine to look at where Maine had strategic advantages and opportunity to accelerate the economy. That research looked at macro trends as well as Maine's advantages. Specific to the food economy, some of those macro trends are a rising demand for locally sourced, responsibly cultivated, innovative, sustainable food. And so Maine can meet that. There's also a recognition of the importance of local supply chains and making sure that those are secure. This was before COVID. Obviously, since COVID, that has become even more important to a lot of people, or recognized as more important. Also, everyone eats. There's a pretty big market for food, regionally, nationally, globally, and there will continue to be people that eat for the foreseeable future. Maine's advantages, so those are the macro trends, and Maine has some clear areas that lend itself well to the food economy. One is the natural assets. There's land, there's water, including the sea, so we have seafood and terrestrial food. The Maine brand, Maine has a pretty good reputation and is seen as a place that people would like food from, so we can capitalize on that and market food accordingly. We're also close to a decent amount of people in the US, being in the Northeast, so we have a built-in local market, and we have access to global markets through our shipping ports. And I think of this as kind of one of the most important things, is that entrepreneurial spirit, because you can't really you can't really build that necessarily. You can, but it's nice that it's already built in, and you probably see that in yourselves or the people that you work with, and it's so crucial for the food economy. So looking at these characteristics and trends, it was determined that Maine had the ability to create a world-class food economy that then could bolster Maine's overall economy. I'm not very good at the clicker. Oh no. Okay. Okay, well, you don't need that. I don't need it either. It's okay. So the goals of cultivating prosperity, okay, shut up now, was really to accelerate the impact that we're already seeing. So Maine's food economy overall was doing well. Jobs were being added, revenue was being generated, and so we were seeing success and wanted to grow on it. Likewise, Focus Maine's programming was doing pretty well. Companies that participate in Focus Maine's programming grow jobs and revenue at a faster rate than Maine's economy overall. We've had programs in place for a while that are doing really well, and we wanted to build on that and see how we could accelerate impact in terms of jobs and revenue. So the approach we took was to develop this report based on data to find those gaps and opportunities and really build on them and create a strategy that would address them. So part of that was conducting an analysis to guide the strategy development, looking at infrastructure, productivity, earnings, and other areas, and then to align that strategy with Focus Maine's goals overall, including accelerating high potential industries, creating quality jobs, and building a future-ready economy. And I just want to talk about that future-ready economy really quickly because I have not said those words together yet today. And we really wanted innovation to be part of this report. If you're here for the last session, they had mentioned innovation a few times, which made me happy. Because we want our food economy and the businesses in our food economy to be successful long-term, not just for the now, and grow and change as the world evolves as well. So the hypothesis was that by providing a high-level analysis of Maine's food economy and a SWOT analysis, that the project would outline a path forward to strengthen the sector and ensure long-term success. So there's a few components, and if you were around for the early days, you may have heard this referred to as Maine Food Future, so I'll reference a little bit of that here. The first part is an analysis. So that was one, looking at literature that already exists, whether that's state reports, regional reports, maybe not just on food, looking at transportation, climate change, etc. A situational analysis, so that was looking at a lot of data, which you'll go into in a moment, and then looking at that as well as the stakeholder engagement, building a SWOT analysis. So that stakeholder engagement portion had a few different elements. One was a 5-part forum series, which we called Maine Food Future, that we had experts in various areas of the food economy come and talk about what they do. It really sparked conversation and helped give us some input to inform our strategies. We also had a special presentation on future readiness to really get in that mindset. And we did stakeholder interviews and workshops as well to help inform the strategy. And then ultimately, we developed an action framework to inform next steps and opportunities within the food economy. And so I'm going to pass it over to Angela to talk a little bit about that first component.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. There's a lot of data about Maine's food economy out there, so it was a really exciting project to kind of dive in and parse through all of this information we have at our fingertips to create a story about what does Maine's food economy look like and where is it headed. So these are just some key overview metrics for the sector. When we're talking about the food economy, I think it's important to point out that we're talking about both, direct farming activities, so crop and animal production, as well as fishing. We're also talking about that processing and manufacturing side of the food economy as well. So it's interesting to me, the split in Maine is about 2/3 of the food economy, by jobs at least, what we found, is in that natural resource side, so the farming, the fishing, crop and animal production. The remaining third in Maine is that processing and manufacturing side. That's kind of unique to Maine if you look at the national scale. It's kind of flipped the other way around. It's mostly processing and manufacturing and a smaller piece ag. So I think that's an interesting component to Maine's food economy, as we have like a really strong natural resource background for the sector. Maine's food economy, what we found is about $2.8 billion of gross regional product annually, which equates to about 3% of Maine's economy. I know the 3% might sound small, but that's really a significant part of the economy. And another great finding that we had was that the sector has had 17% job growth over the 5 years from 2018 to 2023. Compared that to Maine's overall job growth was only about 2%. So it really is a fast-growing sector throughout the economy. And then at the bottom, we just have a breakdown. So it's about 23,200 jobs as of 2023, sorry. Here we go. So another component that we looked into was the supply chain for the food economy. I know this is a really critical component to having an efficient sector. You know, are businesses able to get what they need to create their products? Are they able to efficiently ship it out to their customers? What does that supply chain look like? So we really broke down into are businesses able to source their inputs locally, or are they having to rely on out-of-state sources to create their products? So agriculture, fishing, food manufacturing, and beverage manufacturing were the 4 subsectors we broke this into. And the overall finding was that about 60 to 65% of inputs across the subsectors are imported from out of state. So that really brings up the opportunity to, improve business-to-business transactions, improve the supply chain across the food economy. If we're able to, source more of those inputs from Maine, we can keep more money here, support more businesses throughout the supply chain. So 3 key opportunities specifically that we found. Number 1, expanding in-state packaging opportunities. Packaging is a huge part of food. You go to the grocery store, everything comes in a package. So whether that's, glass bottles or jars, cans, even plastic manufacturing, paperboard. I know there's a lot of innovative solutions going on throughout the state, a lot of new manufacturers exploring some new packaging solutions. How can we apply that to the food sector and make sure that we're kind of integrating that into the businesses we already have producing food? I think personally that's like a huge opportunity for the state, both on the manufacturing side and then as well for the food producers themselves. A second opportunity we found was freight and logistics, specifically for fishing and seafood, and particularly for small producers across the sector. A big problem throughout the state is that, to access these larger distribution networks, you need to have a lot of volume. There's a lot of small producers in Maine. This is especially an issue for the fishing and seafood industry. For those small producers who may not have that big volume, how are we allowing them to access those larger freight and distribution networks? I think there's a lot of potential there to, grow the sector if we're able to improve that. And then the third key opportunity we discovered for improving the supply chain was expansion of meat processing capacity. If you were here just for that last presentation, they were talking a lot about meat processing capacity in Maine. We've talked to a lot of businesses that say, sometimes we have to ship our cattle out of state to be processed. We talked to a USDA meat producer who said, kind of on the flip side, it's a regional issue. It's not unique to Maine. Throughout the region, I have customers from Pennsylvania who are bringing their cattle here to be slaughtered and processed. So overall, expanding that meat processing capacity, and particularly USDA certified facilities, would be a major value add to Maine's food economy. Oh, there we go. A third key topic, and I'd like to highlight that this is not unique to food. You can talk to business owners and industry leaders anywhere. They're going to tell you that workforce is a huge issue, and it's really constraining growth at the moment. So 3 key points for the food economy that kind of contribute to both barriers and opportunities. Number 1, food economy jobs generally across the spectrum have relatively low barriers to entry. So the statistic here, 48% of the jobs that we evaluated require little to no prep and primarily rely on on-the-job training. So that can be a huge benefit in terms of, getting people into these jobs isn't necessarily hard. You're not relying on people to, go get extended degrees and having to find these really high-skilled, hard-to-find workers. On the flip side, that's going to require a lot of targeted effort from employers, industry leaders, state partnerships to make sure that on-the-job training is available. Maybe there are smaller certification programs to funnel these people into jobs and make sure they're getting the skills they need to be farm and food workers. Second key point, my bullets are wrong. They say 111. Number 2. There are some very highly specialized jobs that are really critical to the food sector. In a lot of other sectors I study, there's maybe like 20 key occupations that make up a bulk of the workers. But we found that in agriculture specifically, only 5 job titles make up about 70% of total employment in the farming industry. So what's that telling us? A few key things. Because these jobs are so specialized to the ag sector, the industry itself is going to have to make a lot of targeted effort on its own. You can't rely on, what's the saying, like a high tide raises all boats or something like that. So you can't rely on other sectors doing work and recruiting from those other sectors because your jobs are so specialized to the ag sector. But that also means that any targeted effort is going to make a major impact. So we heard from the last session about a meat processor course to upskill and train new meat processors. Targeted efforts like that can have a major impact because those are going to create a lot of opportunities that have a major impact because those are so many jobs in the sector. And the third key point on workforce, I don't think this is going to be a shock to anyone, but a lot of work is needed to attract those younger and more diverse workers. The 2022 Ag Census pointed out that 40% of agricultural producers in Maine are over the age of 65. I'm seeing a lot of head nods. I know that resonates with a lot of people. So understanding how can we get younger producers in? How can we help those older farmers develop succession plans so that they don't lose that farmland? This is, really a key workforce issue here for Maine. It's a problem everywhere, but particularly in Maine. So kind of flagging that issue and understanding what steps can we take to attract younger producers to keep the sector thriving. There we go. Okay, this is my last slide. I'm going to leave it on a really optimistic note. So this is looking at innovation capital. In the 5 years from 2019 to 2023, the food sector has attracted over $43 million of venture capital. I'll point out that this is reported venture capital. Not all venture capital is reported. But over $43 million of VC funding throughout the state. The chart we're looking at here shows, of all of the venture capital funding attracted to startups in Maine, what share is in the food economy. And that, these bars are growing quite significantly over time. In 2023, almost 20% of all venture capital funding funneling into Maine companies was in the food sector. I think this points to a lot of really exciting opportunities. There's a lot of innovation in the sector. There's a lot of really creative people coming up with new solutions, new products, new technologies that can be applied to the food sector. There's a lot of traction going on throughout the state. I know that there's a lot of organizations, some of them are here today, that are really working on that innovation component. And I think I've been really excited learning about all of these new companies and the creative work they're doing. So that's my last data slide. I'll hand it back to Courtney.
Thank you. Awesome. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the action framework, when it shows up. So the action framework was divided into 7 key sections. I'll try again. Oh, okay. And so those sections are meant to directly address different opportunities and gaps that were identified in the analysis portion. So those are entrepreneurship, startup and scalability, supply chain and infrastructure, access to capital and finance, which tends to be everyone's favorite, innovation, R&D and technology, sustainability, resiliency and environment, talent and workforce development, as well as marketing Maine's food economy, so really building that brand. So with those 7 frameworks, there's actions and sub-actions for each one. Overall, there's about 100 proposed actions total. of those, there are 10 actions that were identified as catalyzers. That's not to say that they're the most important actions. Those are just the actions that unlock other actions. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the catalyzers, but if you're interested in exploring the actions, I definitely recommend picking the key theme that you're most interested in, or maybe you're interested in them all, that's great too, and diving in deeper, because these are just the ones that are a starting point. And this is pretty small, so I'm going to read it out basically, and we'll move through them, but just 10. So entrepreneurship, startup, and scalability. So create a Maine Food Entrepreneurs Resource Council to coordinate programming, events, networking, and communications for organizations supporting businesses and entrepreneurs. So it was identified that there's a decent amount of support for businesses and entrepreneurs. What's not happening is coordination between those organizations, and coordinated communication as well. Still under that entrepreneurship category, invest and expand existing organizations' technical and organizational capacity to support more startups and entrepreneurs with an existing programming. Again, a lot of great work is going on in that realm, so expanding capacity and reach. Moving on to supply chain and infrastructure, assess interest and feasibility of the potential of cooperative producer models to meet supply chain needs through shared facilities, equipment, and shared services. So Angela mentioned that volume issue that comes up with supply chain and infrastructure, and so cooperative models came up as an opportunity to really meet that challenge, so exploring that further. Increase the supply and availability of food and beverage production, processing, cold storage, co-packing, and warehousing facilities throughout the state where gaps exist. That one's pretty self-explanatory, more infrastructure. Okay. So access to capital and finance, enhance technical assistance, and improve communication about existing capital resources through partnerships and food system networks. So again, it was identified that there are a decent amount of resources available and opportunities available. What definitely needs a boost is support for businesses in accessing those, and better communication about those opportunities. Moving on, expand existing networks by allocating funding resources to support underserved businesses and accessing capital. So really reaching those businesses that have a more difficult time in accessing capital traditionally. And then innovation, R&D, and technology, catalyze a comprehensive transformation in innovation, R&D, and technology across Maine's food-related economy to accelerate the state's advancement into the future of food. I'd love to talk about this one. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas if you have any. That's one where we're really trying to grapple with how we push that. Sustainability, resiliency, and environment. Make grants for sustainability and resiliency efforts available, accessible, and low barrier. So in the sustainability and resiliency realm, I think a lot of businesses are really interested in being more sustainable and resilient. It does cost money, so making that funding available so that the businesses can adopt those practices. All right, last two. Talent and workforce development. Develop a strong understanding of workforce needs, available programming, and its impact and training and attraction gaps in the food system. So this is like more research into what do businesses need and how do we meet that, and in what ways are we already meeting that. Lastly, marketing Maine's food economy. Create a Maine Food Promotional Council to promote Maine food products and brands and connect these efforts to local tourism. So that's collaborative marketing. So those are the 10 catalyzers. Again, those are just starting points. I would not say they're like the most important actions. They're just where we need to begin. So collaboration opportunities and really just like next steps with this food report. I really hope that you'll all take a look at it. You may not look at the whole thing, and that's okay. It's long, but maybe you want to look at the data. Maybe that data is helpful in a grant ask or an advocacy or in deciding what your next move is. I hope it is, and I definitely hope you take a look at it. Maybe you want to look at the action items. Again, they're broken down by key themes, so you can pick whatever key theme you want and take a dive in. I hope you find areas where you think you fit in. where you might want to take next steps. Maybe that's individually, maybe that's with a partner, maybe you want to talk about it with us. I'd be happy to talk about it with anyone, whether that's partnership opportunities, how to begin. Really open to conversations about this work. So my email's there. It's very easy. It's Courtney@focusmaine.org. I have some business cards too if anyone wants to grab that. And ultimately, none of this can be done alone. As I said, there's about 100 proposed actions. I can't imagine one organization doing any of those. So let's do it together. Let's build a thriving Maine food economy together. Yeah, and with that, a few thank yous. One to Camoin Associates and Angela for being here today, for doing such wonderful work on this project. The Small Business Administration for supporting this work. Our forum speakers for dedicating some time and their expertise. And everyone who participated in an engagement session, a forum session, workshops, etc. Really appreciate all the input that went into this. And with that, here's the QR code to access the report. You can also go to the Focus Maine website and click on that. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I will be around. I don't know how long you'll be around, but you're welcome to ask us any questions or reach out via email. Yeah, happy to talk more. Thanks.
All right. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. These things are amazing. I won't touch it. Welcome back. My name is Sarah Gross. I'm the Executive Director of Maine Food and Beverage Education Center in Wiscasset, Maine. We are a nonprofit organization that works to educate the public about the incredible diversity of food producers here in our state, from wild blueberry farmers to cheesemakers to brewers. We represent all of them. On our campus, we do a whole range of events and classes and tastings meant to feature these producers and to tell their stories. So at the Ag Show this year, we're lucky enough to have the noon slot on the main stage all 3 days to do some mini interviews with some of the producers that we've partnered with over the past 4 years and just have them share their stories with you. We are hoping to get out of this a lot of insights about agritourism, education, and product innovation. So if you have any questions about any of those topics, the people we're interviewing can probably answer them, or at the very least share their experience. So our first interview today is with Ashley Field of Fields Wild Blueberries in Dresden, Maine. This is a family-run, MFBEC certified organic wild blueberry farm. They're known for their very high quality berries and some very innovative value add products like wild blueberry chips, which are as delicious as they sound, and a wild blueberry crisp, which I hear was served at some point during the Ag Show this year. So maybe she'll tell us a little bit about that. Ashley and her family have very successfully built up their brand through creative marketing, really gorgeous packaging, thoughtful public engagement, and a very, very, very popular Wild Blueberry Weekend event, which we'll hear a little bit about today. And one of the reasons that I invited Ashley to do these interviews today is because she has done a very good job balancing a farm that is also her family's private home, you know, it's a very private space, with welcoming the public in and having this really robust public engagement to really show that you don't have to open up your whole life and your whole space to do agritourism successfully. There is a balance to be found, and I think she's done a really good job with that, with some really innovative decisions. So without further ado, welcome, Ashley.
Thank you.
So would you start out by telling us a little bit about the farm? Just tell us the story briefly, its background, and what you think makes it unique.
Sure. So my in-laws bought the land in the 70s. They were back to the land hippies coming from New York and Connecticut. And on that land came wild blueberries. They weren't seeking out a wild blueberry land or to be wild blueberry farmers in particular. So they had somebody else managing the farm for a number of years while they ran a natural food store in Bath. And then they started to realize that the land was being sprayed, which didn't align with their values. So they took over the management, transitioned it to organic, and Fields Blueberries bloomed in the late 90s, officially certified organic in 2000, and the brand then was born about 8 years ago. So we went from sort of a commodity farm to a vertically integrated farm and food business. We now have an array of value-added products and a food truck, and we just launched one of our products for retail into grocery stores. So we're trying to balance the farm life with the food business life and learning a lot on the way.
Excellent. And so I mentioned this pretty heavily in my introduction, but your farm is also your home. You raise your children there, which does create a sort of unique challenge when engaging with agritourism, at least how we traditionally think of it. Could you tell us a little bit about how you've approached balancing public outreach while still sort of maintaining the privacy of your home?
Sure. We're a family that really values our privacy. So whenever I was approached with agritourism, it was a hard no for me. We just have small children, and most of those children don't like to ever wear clothing, and we just didn't want people showing up at our farm all the time. So once we started getting into the food business, and I was deeper into the industry of the wild blueberry and the heritage of the wild blueberry, I realized that people were really craving this education and connection about wild blueberries and wild blueberry farmers. So we thought, yes, we need to make this happen on some level. We really value community and connection to our customer, and the only way you can really do that is through direct personal interaction. So in order for our farm to open our doors, we just do it on very specific days. We dabbled with a little bit of agritourism, and people were just showing up at our farm all the time, which is fine, and we're very excited and happy to show the fields and to tell the story of the wild blueberry. But then we realized we weren't getting any work done during our day. So as you spend 2 hours with each person that shows up at your farm, that takes 2 hours away from your work day. So the state developed this weekend called the Wild Blueberry Weekend, and it's similar to Maine Maple Sunday. I know there's a lot of maple producers here today because they had their annual meeting. And then it's the same weekend every summer, the first weekend in August, and it's a chance for wild blueberry growers to open their doors in a really big way. And people can come, they can visit one farm, or they can go on a tour of the state and visit multiple farms and really get a sense of how wild blueberries are grown, what makes wild blueberries unique, and form a connection with a local farmer. So we jumped on this train instantly. We thought it was a great answer to our issue with integrating agritourism into our business, and it has been wildly successful.
How many attendees do you typically have at your Wild Blueberry Weekend?
Our first year we had around 1,500, and now we're seeing between 2,500 and 3,000 people.
That is a huge number for a
Yeah.
two-day event. How do you go about designing what you offer on Wild Blueberry Weekend? You have a very limited amount of time to put on a very big show.
Yeah.
What is your thought process in putting together your offering?
Our goal for Wild Blueberry Weekend was that we wanted to create an environment where people could stay for the whole day, that people could come and really feel like part of a community. Put out a picnic blanket, listen to live music all day, jump in on a farm tour, eat a bunch of local food, mingle with local vendors. We just wanted it to have like a festival feel, not something that you would just stop by, be there for half an hour and then move on, which obviously anyone's more than welcome to do that, but we wanted people to really feel at home in our home. So we provide live music all day. There's food from the morning. We start with a pancake breakfast, and then we have local food vendors throughout the day. There's local crafts, and then our farm tours just run every hour all day long. So you can participate in winnowing, you can participate in harvesting, you can walk the fields, walk our property. We have 70 acres that have trails, and then we have spots in the woods for kids' activities. We just really want people to feel like they can settle in for the day.
Nice. That sounds really lovely. What kinds of results have you seen from this in terms of community response, relationships you've been able to build, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think once you form a relationship with your customer that is direct and personal, you have a customer for life. They are invested in you, they know you, they align with you, and so we hear at all the other events we do out the year, we first saw you on your Wild Blueberry Weekend, and they're coming back every year, even though we may not be offering anything unique or different from year to year, but they had such a great time and felt such a good connection that they feel like they want to come year after year.
Nice. So the other sort of side of this, you've got this one weekend event that you do every year. It's amazing, you invite people in, but the other part of the way that you connect with the public is by taking what you offer out into the world. You have this mobile crisp cart. I think I have a picture of it up there for people to see, and you bring some of your awesome value add products out to other locations. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that idea came about and how it helps you connect with people without always having to?
Sure. Yeah. The crisp part, I would say, is definitely a pillar of our business. Our product, the Wild Blueberry Crisp, was sort of born out of a sense of community and gathering people around food. It's like the dish we would always bring to potlucks. And so we thought, well, if we're going to commercialize this, then we need to really maintain that same value of sharing food in community. So we have this mobile crisp cart. It's a food trailer, and we go to fairs and festivals with it. And it allows us to also develop those personal relationships with customers they see me, I see them, and then we all recognize each other, and they start to follow us on social media, and they're really just kind of brought into what we call our wild family, which is our network, which is our customers. And also from a product perspective, getting to watch somebody try your product for the first time is the best information that you can get. So it's not like you create a product, you send it to a grocery store, and you don't get to actually experience that person experiencing your product. It's the best feedback you can get. And honestly, it is what keeps me going. It's my why. Getting to see somebody take a bite of our blueberry crisp for the first time and have this whole experience with this food is what keeps me going. So if I didn't have that direct relationship, that direct experience with people, I don't know, I would think I would be burnt out by now. Or it wouldn't feed me in the same way that it feeds me getting to experience people trying our food.
Nice. So it's not just a marketing strategy, it's also your strategy for staying present and involved and happy about what you're doing.
You know, it's a great way for us to test out new markets. So we've been trying to go down to Massachusetts and see, because some people, even though we're not that far away, they don't know that there's a difference between wild blueberries and regular blueberries. So it's a chance for us to test out new markets but also maintaining our cash flow. So it's not like we're paying oodles of money to go to a trade show or something. We're actually making money and getting the same information.
So your value add products are pretty central to this crisp cart idea and to a lot of the interactions with the public. Can you tell us a little bit more about the different types of value add products that you make and how they tie into your outreach efforts?
Sure. So we started making value added products during COVID because we needed a way to ship the blueberries, and shipping frozen blueberries is a challenge, especially during COVID when all of the shipping companies stopped guaranteeing ship times. So you'd spend $150 to overnight ship something, it would show up 6 days later and nobody was insuring that. So we just stopped shipping completely and we started making dehydrated products. So we started making blueberry powder and blueberry chips that easily could be shipped. And sort of on the side of all that, we were developing the blueberry crisp. It was just a dream of mine to always be a vendor at Common Ground Fair. It was always one of my favorite fairs. And initially, that was my only goal with the blueberry crisp, was just to do Common Ground Fair. And then that was so well received that we decided to expand the blueberry crisp. And now we're doing dozens of events every year. And it's not on purpose, but become the foundation of our farm. For me, agriculture, like commodity crop agriculture, is really difficult in this day and age. And so the more that you can create something with your products and make these vertically integrated food business systems, the more successful you're going to be. And I learned that on accident, but now I'm seeing that more and more, that the most successful farms that I'm seeing are farms that are creating these products and then putting them to market.
Excellent. For other producers who are maybe considering agritourism but have those same hesitations that you did when you were getting started, what kind of advice would you give them about dabbling in agriculture, in agritourism, but not giving up all of themselves?
I would say schedule a date. And there's opportunities where you can just open your farm for the weekend. There's Maine Open Farm Day, which I believe is the end of July, where you could just try it out for a day. And you don't have to do a lot. You know, it sounds like you don't have to book live music and do, because people are hungry to get to know where their food is coming from, to get to know their farmers. They want to come see your farm. And as soon as you develop that relationship with someone coming to visit your farm, whether you sell milk or beef, that person is probably going to buy from you for the rest of their lives, because we're in an era of convenience, or people just go to the grocery store, that's where they buy their food. I think people want to maybe buy like half a cow or half a pig, but they don't know how to. So the more that you can make that relationship, then they know who to go to if they do want to buy local meat, eggs, anything, blueberries, any products really. So starting simple would be my suggestion, and then see how that goes for you.
and then make a plan from there.
Start slow.
Start slow, yeah.
Start slow.
And make sure you always have a really good parking plan.
That's actually a really good point. And
Yeah.
so someone asked this question during the interviews yesterday. I don't know if they're here again today, but I'll ask it to you again. Have you ever had any like pushback from your neighbors or any like logistical issues with inviting so many people in
Yeah.
at one time? And if so, how have you dealt with them?
Yeah, I mean, our first Wild Blueberry Weekend, once I saw the numbers really ticking up on our Facebook event, I let the town know, like, hey, we're having this event. I don't know, maybe like 1,000 people are going to show up, and that we let our neighbors know. Luckily, you know, most farms have enough land where your neighbors like not right on top of you. So we just said, hey, there might be a little extra traffic on our road today because we don't live on a main road, and we've never gotten any pushback. Last year was our first year receiving rain during Wild Blueberry Weekend, and the field that we parked everybody in turned into a mud pit. But people just parked on the side of the road and walked up. We live on the top of the highest point in Lincoln County, so they were getting a nice workout on the way up the road to our farm. But people are happy to just go with the flow and adjust. And no, we haven't really gotten any pushback.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Does anyone here have any questions for Ashley before I ask my last question? Questions about agritourism? So
Sure.
the question was, we mentioned a little bit of retail. Where around the state do you
Yeah.
sell retail?
So the box that's right in front of our food truck there is our grocery store Wild Blueberry Crisp. So this product we just launched in 2024 into independent grocery stores. 2024 was our test year with it, so we're mostly in co-ops, independent grocery stores around the state. For example, like Belfast Co-op, Portland Food Co-op, and then smaller stores like Sheepshead General in Whitefield, Alna store in Alna, places that are close to us, and then we reach all the way down to Kennebunkport and a store called Bradley Brothers. And then in 2025, we will be starting conversations with chain grocery stores and navigating distribution. We're currently with Crown of Maine Distribution, which is a great local distributor, and so we will be starting conversations and building relationships with larger distributors that then we can expand past New England.
Waterville? Specifically in the Waterville area?
We are not in Waterville. The closest would be probably Whitefield. Yeah. You're welcome.
All right, the question was, what about purchasing fresh blueberries?
Yes, good question. We actually don't sell any fresh wild blueberries. So we flash freeze our entire crop. It's called an IQF, individually quick frozen process that we use a processor in Ellsworth. So we harvest our blueberries, we truck them to Ellsworth, and they are frozen within 24 hours. So this gives us a grade A product that we can use year round. It's frozen at its peak freshness. Wild blueberries don't have a high water content, so they cook the same frozen as they do fresh. And this machine beautifully takes out every single twig and berry and leaf and individually freezes the berries, so you can just scoop them out of a box. And it's really a beautiful processing method that allows us to have a year-round business.
All right, any other, one more? The
Sure.
question is, where do you do all your packaging and who handles it?
I mean, we print our packaging through large printers. We use Oliver Printing. I believe they're in Michigan, I think. They are a packaging company that just aligned with our values. The soy-based inks and recyclability of the packaging was what we were looking for, and so we went with them. But as far as production, we have an 800 square foot commercial kitchen that we package and produce all of our blueberry crisp in. Our goal in 2025 is to grow our production to a point where we can then switch into a co-packer. so that all of the production will be off farm, and then hence why we would need a larger distributor, and then it would enter into the larger markets in that way. But right now we're self-producing, which works for us, but it's hard when you're running a food business and a farm. There's only so much you can do, and so if you grow, personally, I like the farming more than the producing, so to grow this and hand it off is a goal of mine so that I can still focus on the farming.
All right. So that actually ties in really nicely to my last question, which is looking ahead, what are your goals for Fields Wild Blueberries? It could be about product and expansion like that,
Yeah.
or if you have goals for agritourism and public outreach.
Yeah. I think as far as agritourism, what we're doing right now is working really well for us. We have plans to purchase a second food truck, which will be more for sampling purposes and maybe special events. So it'll be a little bit fancier, self-driving, so that I don't have to trailer something. And then, so our goals are to just keep expanding our crisp. And then long-term goals are acquiring more blueberry land. So the biggest threat to the wild blueberry industry is land development, and we hope to establish a land trust that buys wild blueberry land, manages it organically to preserve the industry. Wild blueberries grow on some of Maine's most beautiful land. They like coastal land. They usually have water views, and they're on hilltops. They're the places that have the most beautiful views in the state, and the land is worth a lot of money to develop. Once you develop that land, the wild blueberries are gone forever. So it's definitely the biggest threat to the industry, and as far as our long-term goals, preserving that is number one. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Any final questions? Have you noticed an impact with warmer temperatures?
Yeah, this is a question that I get asked often. How's climate change impacting the wild blueberries? And my answer is always wild blueberries wouldn't be here if it weren't for climate changes. They're a 10,000-year-old fruit that grew in after the glaciers receded. And there's just so much wisdom in 10,000 years that I just trust that they're adapting and doing what they need to do. As far as a farmer, we have had impacts like late frosts. 2 years ago, late frost took out 80% of our crop. So there's definitely things that you have to accommodate or deal with as a farmer. That's like with any farming. I think with farming wild blueberries, you really have to surrender. You can't control a lot. You're not planting anything. You can't change any locations of anything. You really have to just surrender to, I'm farming a wild crop and I need to just be happy with what I get, if that's anything. As far as the wild blueberry industry, it's only really devastating when something like a frost is statewide. Luckily, we were able to work with Penobscot Nation, which is another organic wild blueberry farm, and we purchased what we lost, and so that our farm and our business could keep going. So, but you're definitely seeing climate change things, but I also see that the blueberries are sort of adapting to that. We used to always harvest the beginning of August. Now we're harvesting the past 5 years, the end of July. And so maybe that's a short-term thing, short-term for them at least, for wild blueberries. Maybe it's long-term, we don't know. But the best thing I think to do is less inputs and let them adapt, because that's the only way their longevity is gonna live on. Any other questions?
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. This was
thank
super
you.
interesting. Very glad you were able to join us today.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Always love being amongst farming lovers.
You're in the right place. All right, we're going to take like a 2-minute break after we give Ashley her round of applause, switch to the next interview, and then we'll start again. All right, we are back ready for our second interview. This one is with Caroline of Fuzzy Udder Creamery. Caroline is the new-ish head cheesemaker at Fuzzy Udder in Whitefield. This is a beloved artisan creamery. Many of you are probably familiar with them. They've been on the Maine cheese scene for a while, recently under new ownership, and they've become really well known for their high-quality cheeses crafted with sheep's milk, goat's milk, and cow's milk. They're pretty amazing. There's a lot of things I want to ask Caroline about Fuzzy Udder today, but I also want to mention that Caroline brings with her a wealth of experience to this role at Fuzzy Udder, not just as a skilled cheesemaker, but also as a passionate advocate for Maine's cheesemaking community. She works with the Maine Cheese Guild. She's been very deeply involved in the Maine Cheese Festival for at least a few years. She's really been instrumental in fostering this really unique collaboration between Maine's cheesemakers and helping to raise awareness of our growing cheese industry. So during this conversation, I want to talk a little bit about her work at Fuzzy Udder, their different public-facing opportunities, but also Caroline's work with the Cheese Guild and the Cheese Festival and what her vision is for the future of collaboration in Maine cheese. So without further ado, welcome Caroline.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Would you like to start out by telling us a little bit about Fuzzy Udder, its history, and how you ended up there?
Sure. One of the things that I really am proud of about Fuzzy Udder is how cumulative and collaborative it is. It was started in 2011 by Jesse Dowling, who used to work for Caitlin Hunter at Appleton Creamery, another creamery that was foundational in sort of the Maine cheese scene. So Jessie came with Caitlin's knowledge. Jessie grew the business, decided she wanted to transition to riding horses. Sounds lovely. I wish I could do that too for a while. But was given the opportunity to change sort of roles from my previous cheesemaker job at Kennebec Cheesery over to Fuzzy Udder when Michael and Jackie Segura bought the business. So we really have this long-term iterative approach of it's been a few different businesses over the years. And we really appreciate that we've been able to grow with the cheese community and be sort of instrumental in being part of that community as well.
Nice. And so what brought you to Fuzzy Udder? I know you have lots of cheesemaking experience previously, so tell us a little bit about that experience and how you got to where you are now.
Getting into cheesemaking more broadly or being at Fuzzy
your
Udder?
background.
Yeah. I happily fell into cheesemaking just from good chance. It was always a pipe dream of mine. I thought I was going to do it maybe when I retire. Always mentioned to people I like cheese, and just really, really had the good luck of being laid off from a job at the right time when a cheesemaker friend of mine needed help. We came into each other's lives, and I learned how to make cheese from Jean Coons at Kennebec Cheesery for 5 years. She was really my mentor, and I owe a lot of my experience to her. She really believed in a farmstead quality product at a reasonable price to our customers and being an integral part of our community, not just a value-add product you see on a shelf, but people whose neighbors you go to, you see the farm, you meet the goats, you get to name a kid. So I come from that very community-minded aspect and was considering whether or not I wanted to be in business for myself. I really love cheese making. I really hate doing spreadsheets. I really hate doing business books. I was given the opportunity to be purely a cheesemaker, and I feel very fortunate that I don't have to deal with supplying our labels or going on distribution routes. We are a tiny team. We have 5 people at our creamery, so we end up wearing a lot of hats, but fortunately my hat is just in the creamery right now.
Excellent. So pivoting back to Fuzzy Udder now, I know personally I've attended quite a few very interesting, memorable events at Fuzzy Udder's farm in Whitefield. Could you tell us a little bit about what kinds of events Fuzzy Udder does on location to sort of invite the public in?
Sure. We don't have animals on site anymore. We decided a few years ago that we want to support the people who are good at farming and doing what they do so we can focus on making good cheese. Blessings upon the people who do farmstead creameries. I work on them. They are an incredibly valuable resource to have in our community, but it is not right for everyone, and it was not right for me. So we like to have people come by so they can taste our cheeses, you can describe the flavor and the appearance and the texture of a cheese all day long, but tasting is what it's about, and that's what's fun, and that's what's hands-on, and that's what people remember. If they remember the smell and the taste and the scenery, we're lucky to be in a very beautiful part of the Sheepshead Valley in Whitefield. So we really enjoy having people come in, we sample our cheeses, we get to tell you what's fresh, what's been aging for a while, you get to see the facility. We also have a very large picture window right in front of our self-serve creamery store so that you can see us actually making the cheese. So it'll say, oh, we're making Earthball today. That's our Swiss style. You can try the Swiss style right here in our fridge. So we really like to be able to say, come, see what we're doing, see the cleanliness, get to know your local cheesemakers, get to know your local producers, come and talk to us, and we'll tell you what's good.
Lots of education. That's kind of the
Yes.
running theme.
Yes. I would say educating your audience on the benefits of your product is by far the most valuable way to drive sales. If you give people a reason to say, I will buy this cheese as opposed to the mozzarella I usually buy in the grocery store, the way that you do that is by saying, hi, I'm a human, I made your food, you support my salary, thank you so much, and they will feel grateful for that opportunity to support you. People really want to feel connected to their food communities. People are very dissociated from their food sources, from their neighbors, and being that point of contact between you and your neighbors and your community has been extremely valuable, and it costs no money other than a smile and maybe a sample of cheese or blueberries, or and it's harder to do for the people who do meat, but there's ways to say, here's how you use our product. Here's why supporting us is a valuable thing for you to do as well. It preserves farmland, it puts jobs in your community, and it keeps the tradition of farming alive in a formerly agricultural state.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message, and that's something that we find in our work at Maine Tasting Center as well. The more you tell, the more you sell. People want to know it. They're excited to know it. They're grateful to know it.
And if you say, the more you tell, the more you sell, it rhymes, it must be true.
Exactly. So this one I probably should have run by you before asking it over a microphone, but on your website it says that your farm stand, your cheese fridge, is available 24/7.
It is.
Is that true?
It is.
That seems too good to be true.
The door is unlocked. You can go right in.
So
and
that's
we won't
very-
be there to sell you something with a credit card, but Venmo, cash, or check, you can come in, you can buy our cheese at any time.
And you publicize that. So that, to me, is like pretty unique. I've not encountered too many farm stands in Maine that are open 24/7. I don't know if you were the decision maker on that, but can you speak a little bit to the idea behind that, making it so accessible?
I think it's that we want to be part of the community. The owners also live on site. There's no reason not to. If you decide it's 9 o'clock and you have people coming over, you say, oh, I need some cheese, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to go get high quality artisanal cheese if you live nearby.
Or even if you don't.
Or even if
you're
you don't.
driving through at 2 a.m.
Exactly. We don't typically sell too many cheeses at between 8 and 6 in the morning, but that option is there, and we're welcome. You're welcome. You won't see people making cheese, but you'll see plenty of beautiful sunrises and sunsets.
I thought that was very, very interesting. I think that's like a very practical on-farm experience. Like, it invites people in, they're still getting to see the farm, they're getting to experience it. They can do it on their terms, literally whenever they want.
Yes.
Often, like agritourism experiences, they're at a certain time, or they're just on Saturdays or something like that. This, I feel like, is just so practical, and it's a way also of saying to the community, like, we trust you and we want you here.
We do. We trust our community.
Yeah.
We want them there. And I think that trust has been rewarded. We haven't had any issues, partially because I think people live there too, and we're involved in the community, and people don't want to, mess up the relationships in their community. Again, I'm very grateful that we've never had an issue with it, and there's no reason why we can't be trusting of our, customers.
Nice. So I mentioned during my introduction, you've been very actively involved with the Maine Cheese Guild and the Maine Cheese Festival. I'm hoping everyone here is familiar with the Maine Cheese Festival, but if you're not, it's an absolutely amazing event that happens every year in September.
The second Sunday of September.
And it's a time when all of Maine's cheesemakers can get together in one place and engage with the public, give out samples. It's great. How do you feel these collaborative efforts benefit Maine cheesemakers and their sort of public education efforts?
It is extremely valuable for the guild to have, well, to be a guild, to be a collection of people who all collectively decide we're going to try to promote all of our cheeses in common instead of saying we're going to market our cheese, you're going to market your cheese, try and do all these little tiny projects individually. We're busy. We don't have time to do it all on our own, so collectivizing was sort of the easiest of all the options. We come from farms where a lot of us have been apprentices on other people's farms. We are collaboratively minded. I'm really, really lucky that it is a very helpful community. We're not tight about each other's recipes. We share technical knowledge with each other. We really want everyone to succeed. I don't want to make every type of cheese. I don't want to make cheddar. I don't want to make mozzarella. I want other people to do that well, so I can focus on the blues and the bloomy rinds and the wash rinds that I like to make. There's room for a lot of different people to make cheeses, and we can put on bigger events if we all work together to put on a festival, to coordinate Open Creamery Day, which we do in October, to be able to say, here's a self-guided tour you can do to all of our creameries, or to 5, or to 1 and spend all day there. So we fully believe that working with other people who are also in your industry lifts the whole industry. It does not hurt the competition. From what we have seen, we've only increased the scale of Maine cheese. You think about other states like Vermont or Wisconsin, they have a council, they work collaboratively too, and they are internationally famous for the quality of their products. So working together with other small producers really allows you to do a lot more because you're all doing a little bit of, a piece of a pie as opposed to trying to everyone make their own pie.
Absolutely. And how do you feel that events like the Cheese Festival help with building relationships with customers? It's like experiential marketing in a way.
Yes, I mean, like I said, being able to have people try your product is the best marketing. If you make a good product and you try it and you have a friendly face and people remember you fondly, they will look for you and they will tell your friends and they will buy from you again. And that repeat buyer is the one that's going to drive your sales much more than the tourist who comes once every year and buys, a good amount of stuff, but then goes back home and they're not buying from you in the slow season.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is like what you said, where, if you're promoting the industry as a whole, like the Maine Cheese Festival does, you're building this sort of brand loyalty with customers for the whole industry. So when they go to a store, even if they don't see Fuzzy Udder, they're still maybe going to be looking for, where's the Maine cheese?
Yes.
We see that all the time.
We really like to have that statewide reputation of saying, we produce a quality product, we produce cheese that's comparable to what you could get from a European imported store, but you get to support your neighbor, you're not paying for all the carbon to transport it across the ocean, you're not paying tariffs or whatever. So and you get to pay your neighbors a living wage. So it's a very important piece to state your case to your customer and say, here's all the reasons why it's worth it to pay a little bit more in the short term for your product because you get a better result. It's better for the environment. It's better food that's not full of chemicals and preservatives. There's often a lot more focus on an environmental packaging. So you make your case when you get to interact with your customers. And being able to say there's 20 cheesemakers all at the event is a much bigger incentive for people to come than say we'll have 2, or it's just Open Creamery Day and you come and you try 1 cheese.
Makes sense. So as the new head cheesemaker at Fuzzy Udder, how do you and the new team over there plan on building some of the success that the original business had, continuing to build on that, engage the public? What's coming up for Fuzzy Udder?
We really want to get our cheese in people's mouths. We really want to provide a lot more tasting opportunities this year. So we want to do a lot more shows, events, pop-up things. We are still at farmers markets. We love our co-ops. We're trying to do more. They do a lot of tasting events at the co-op markets. We really like to support them as well. They're very loyal customers. So really like entering into competitions to try and get some awards is really good publicity. So we're trying to enter into more competitions and do a lot more tasting opportunities to try and drive local sales. We like being in Maine. We're self-distributing. It's a lot to wrap our heads around trying to get out of state. So we're really trying to grow our in-state sales this year.
Makes sense. And finally, what advice would you give to other food producers, maybe not necessarily cheesemakers, but producers in other industries, about leveraging these tools of collaboration, trade associations and industry groups, public-facing experiences to grow their businesses?
Yeah, I would really encourage people to go to like their local farmers market or other local food events. People are generally very excited to hear about a new business and want other new food businesses to succeed as well. People will give you resources and say, oh, I know this person. You know, farmers, food producers have a lot of soft ties and are very good at saying, oh, so-and-so over at such and such a business would be a good person to talk to. They went through that process 2 years ago. Or, oh, I know this person at the co-op extension. Go talk to Beth Calder. She's a delight and a great resource. So talk to the people who have done it already. Don't be shy. If you get one person who's salty, go find another person. You'll find someone who's not.
Excellent. Collaboration is where it's at. Does anyone else have any questions for Caroline? Cheese making, events, anything? All right. Is there anything else that you want to share with us that we didn't get to in our questions? It's okay if the answer is no. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I think, you know, I really believe in the power of a bunch of small producers working together. I really believe in the mission of our guild. I'm very proud of it. And I would encourage people to create their own organizations or to join one if there's one available to them.
Nice. And I hope if you haven't already, visit the Maine Cheese Guild booth just on the other side of this curtain here. They can tell you all about Maine cheese and the different public-facing events they've got coming up. And thank you all for coming to today's interviews. We've got one more set tomorrow. Tomorrow we have 3 that we're going to be squeezing into 1 hour. We'll be talking to Willow's Awake Winery about cold hardy grapes. We'll be talking to Ash Hill View Farm about venison farming, red-tailed deer, and to Run Amok Meadery about agritourism in the mead industry. And in the meantime, if you want to come talk to me some more, learn more about what we do, Maine Food and Beverage Education Center has a booth way further back towards the back. Come see us. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. Happy.
Did you?
Yeah.